Alright, so we're back with my friend's Infinity one more time. He's actually going to be installing the spacer that goes here in the plenum. And then he also got the 4 new bolts for his throttle body. So since we have to take everything off to get the spacer, he got a new gasket. And we will now be replacing the missing bolt for his throttle body. Alright, so we're going to start by unplugging the mass airflow and removing this intake hose as well as this hose. Alright, that'll go off to the side. Now let's see if we get lucky and this fits. Kind of. Alright. Let's tighten, loosen. There we go. Alright, throttle body we'll place off to the side. These bolts aren't going to be used. Gasket looks good. We'll keep it as a backup just in case those bolts are gone. So now we need some pliers. And before that though, I'm going to remove all the 10 millimeters bolts that Alright, so now that we've removed all the, or loosened all the bolts around it, we're going to take and slide these clamps down to remove these hoses that hold on. Alright, so there's 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to remove this piece from here. There we go. We'll put that bolt there. And then the final hose will be this one right here. There we go. Alright. So now our upper intake manifold should be, yep. Alright. We're going to place this here momentarily. Still clean from the last time, however it does come with a new gasket. So I'll be removing these as well. They are 10 millimeters. Alright, pick this up, place this here, and remove the old gasket. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to clean up the surface and I'll be right back. Alright, so I ended up going to Z1's website to figure out the bolts and where they exactly went. So in the end, I was left with 3 extras, which is correct. So these 3 are actually from here, and the 3 that are in here were up here. So Z1 gives you an extremely long bolt to reach, and then starting from this one all the way across to here, they give you these replacement bolts for that with the washer. And then on this back side, it just has you reuse the factory bolts. The only thing that kind of changes for these center ones is they give you this little washer with a gasket, which you have to install with the gasket facing down. And then here, which is the actual studs, or these guide ones on the original plenum, which are right here, I'm going to be removing them and using the bolts that they provided. They say you don't have to, you can just leave them there. I'd rather not risk a no pressure point with a possible vacuum leak in the future, so I'm going to take these off in just a moment so I can use the provided bolts from Z1. Alright, so to remove it, I have 2 10mm, and I actually used the nuts that came off of this. So I threaded one upside down, the other one right side up. Grab here, and you tighten them onto each other. Once they're there, you can crack free, and the stud will actually remove itself from there. Don't try to crack it free using the top one, as you might break it free and then you lose the friction between the two. So use the bottom one to break it free, and then the top one can just be used to finish the removal. Now to take these off to reuse, I flip backwards, and it's going to take a little bit of force, but there we go. They broke free. Now I will redo that on the passenger side. So this is the stud from there. So now, again with the washer half facing up, so it's upside down, we'll go there. This one will go on top, and then again hold the bottom in place. There we go. And we'll tighten down the top nice and snug, and then push to break free. Once it breaks free, there we go, we can then use the top to continue until the stud has been completely removed. And then the studs are actually good, so just in case, we'll keep them around in case anything in the future needs a stud to be placed there. So there you go, that's how I removed it. Now I got to install this lower gasket with those, so I'll show you that in just a moment. Alright, so to open this, I just drug a screwdriver across, and I'm going to pull off the gasket. This does have arrows pointing towards the front again, so please make sure you don't mess up the alignment. Yeah, the arrows are facing forward, obviously it didn't align, so I'm going to flip it. And there we go. So now this is in its place with the arrows pointed forward. So I will get this, which again, arrow pointed forward indicates the marking you need. We'll place this in here, always start the bolts by hand. Alright, and now I'll tighten them down. It's loosening, tightening. Alright. Alright, so now that is in, next piece we place is actually this metal one. So we will place this with the large space facing this way, and then the gasket will also be placed. So this is a separate gasket now that Z1 provides for the upper half. Now I don't know if the bottom is reusable or not. Some are, some aren't. We're just being on the safe side and just replacing it anyways. So now that all this is in place, the next step is to actually grab the manifold with all the bolts there, and I'm going to slowly lower this down onto it, and that we got the bolts in place. So upon installing or placing the cover, we took out the studs. These reach in and they all thread in. However, it says to reuse the factory ones here, and they do not grab. So just to test the height clearance, I placed it there, and you can see they don't reach. So if they don't reach here, they're definitely not going to reach back here. So what we've decided to do to not leave any part of the gasket that's not being pressed, to make sure that there's a good seal, we're gonna head to our local hardware store and buy some of these. We're gonna buy 2 extras to replace the one here and the one over here, which does not reach. Now, what's weird is that this one back here also didn't reach. As you can see by the threads, it's slightly longer. So when we actually place it in, it does actually grab. So we'll be reusing that factory bolt. So we're gonna go get 2 replacements for that, and we'll be back. Alright, so before I head out to go get the part, this is the original bolt that was here. These were here, and Z provided these bolts. So if you take these, because there's nothing underneath, they will match here. However, if you notice, the threads will bottom out, and I haven't even actually put pressure on this. So we won't actually be able to tighten to make sure that this is actually airtight. So we're gonna go get a bolt, just in case you were wondering if we could just take these and place them here. Unfortunately, this upper half is too long and it won't let it completely clamp down tightly. Alright, so we're back from the auto parts. We actually went to AutoZone. This is the bolts that we got. Now, we ended up getting 10, just like Z1 gave us, and we decided to put them all here, just because they look more factory, but we were able to replace all the way around the cover, except for this one right here, which this one obviously the factory one grabbed, but they do look, as you can see, very similar to what a factory one is. So we'll be using those there. So now we just have to tighten them down, and they are still a 10mm. So we can still tighten them down. So I'm going to start tightening these down, and once they're all snug, I will be back. Alright, so now that we got all the bolts tightened down, we're going to reattach all the hoses, and we're going to reattach that piece. Now, this is raised a little bit. I don't think it'll probably affect it, but I'm going to put this here as it was. I guess the only thing I notice is this is a little bit tighter than normal, but it's alive. But it's not really tugging on it. There's still slack, so I don't think we should have to worry about that too much. Now to connect the other pieces, so we will be connecting that, and this one back into place. Alright, so now we can move all these clamps. And there's that one. And the final one. Alright, now it's time to get the new gasket, new bolts for the throttle body. Alright, so we're installing the throttle body with the new gasket. Again, they're a size 5. So we will be now installing the new ones. So this bottom corner one, unfortunately, was the one that was missing. There were 1, 2, and 3 were there. This was missing. They're now all brand new, and we will be placing this in. Now when you tighten these, please don't over tighten them too much. You don't want to strip the threads. The housing, this part is aluminum. They strip easily. Alright, so the new throttle body bolts are in. We can now connect this, and now for the finishing touch, the intake. Okay, got lucky with that. Let's slide this here. Let's place this back on here where it's easy for us to see it. And place this. Okay, so that piece is very snug. See if we can place it towards the edge of it. There we go. Alright, so now we'll get the flathead, tighten this down. There we go, and we're gonna install here.